What if France went communist? Now, I've been wanting to do this for a good second now, but if you think about it, France had a fair chance of going communist. Russia, one of their greatest one of their allies around the beginning of World War, World War One, had many communists in their government. Not to mention the French. Uh, the French lost the Rhineland to Germany in the Franco-Prussian War, so there was a lot of discontent in France. Not to mention the Morocco crisis, in which France could these overseas territories could have possibly tried to gain independence, and then, not to mention, Germany sent communists into Russia, and I guess they could have sent communists into France. So let's go over the scenario. Alright, so we're going to say how this kind of goes down. We're going to show up. Okay, so in France, short after the Franco-Prussian War, about before the World War I started, the people of France start to kind of, they start to protest a lot, and they kind of get pissed off, And this whole thing kind of starts in Lyon. However, the protesters quickly spread it all around France. And so, the French Communist Party forms. Alright, there's the French Communist flag. Don't ask that. It's supposed to be a hoe and a sickle. Don't question it, please. Alright, French Communist. Communist. Is start to prepare rebellions across the state. As certain members of the French Communist Party start to pick violent paths. France suddenly is trying to lower their possible threat of annihilation, launches violent offenses against these protests, which end in the French communists capturing Paris. Oh my god. Alright, there we go. Capture Paris. The French communists begin a full-on revolution against the current French government, fighting hostilely. The French, near Paris, an extremist group takes control over the city. This group would become known as the Paris Imperial Army, which would be monarchist rebels fighting against France. Meanwhile, near Natal, Nice, another group rebels, which declared themselves the I don't know how to spell fascist, so Union, forming the Fascist Union of Franks. The Imperial Army, as the side slowly frees up, as the French communists managed to take control over a large majority of southern France while pushing the main government, slowly pushing towards the main government in Marseilles, the front freezes in France, with different groups supporting different governments. For example, the UK supports the main government of France. The French communists are, well, supported by no one, because no one liked communists at that time. And the Fascist Union of Franks and the Paris Imperial Army are supported by Germany. As the fronts freeze up, a sudden rebellion in Morocco against the French overship, due to the distrust in Imperial France, results in multiple governments revolting. And the collapse of Frank power in Africa. As members of the France army are trapped in the territories, they declare independent states as they declare themselves to be Free France. Free France, or the last democratic state of France. Eventually, France surrenders up its colonial ambitions. And Italy, having claims on France, decides to try to seize those territories. Landing on Corsica and taking minor casualties as the Franks are busy fighting surrounding groups of Franks and finally wiping them out. As well as launching an offensive towards Monaco, taking the area around Monaco, taking some of their claimed states. Finally, due to this collapse, a coalition forms called the Nate's Pact, which is to topple the original Frank government. And then they can focus on each other. The Fascist Union of Franks gets very far into enemy territory and seizes many territory. In the agreements, the Paris Imperial Army gains a lot of territory and launches a humongous offensive towards the Rhineland. While the French communists finally lodge off the majority of the Frank territory. The rest of the territory, not seized as the French government finally capitulates, is divided between the Fascist Union of Franks and the Paris Imperial Army. France, after losing multiple wars, this unsteady alliance and its compacting quickly crumbles. Meanwhile, the French communists launch an offensive into the fascist and Paris Imperial Army. Declaring the Franks Commonwealth, the Fascist Union of Franks and Paris Imperial Army fight heavily with the communists. However, they are eventually overwhelmed. The Fascist Union of Franks is eventually overwhelmed and nearly completely destroyed. The Paris Imperial Army eventually also falls, resulting in a French Commune victory. Free France, fighting a war with Morocco and Algeria on two fronts, successfully takes Algiers and declares martial victory as well as martial law in the states. Hold on. In the Free-French victory and the second offensive into Tunisia, the French finally succeed and declare martial victory in Africa. The Free France campaign against the communists begins as the French communists attempt to launch an offensive into Italy, with Germany declaring war, as well as Austria-Hungary. The French quickly, after still building up the forts, launches a minor counteroffensive in the Rhine, taking minor territory in Germany. Stalling the German help sent to Italy as they launch an offensive towards Monaco, successfully eliminating a large majority of the communists. Eventually, in the peace agreement, France, the Commune of France, it's a large amount of territory. In an agreement, Corsica remains demilitarized. Milan, however, revolts as the French Commune gains minor territories against the Germans. The Upper Italian dictatorship is declared by Mussolini. Italy, losing a large majority of their power, is on the verge of collapse. Leaving due to unrest with the Central Powers due to them considered not protecting them enough, Italy leaves the Central Powers and Free France decides to gain a foothold back on Italy, launches an invasion of the state, taking territory, and in the peace invading as Italy, seeing the seas of the small island, declares them weak, the French weak and unethical. France launches a offensive, capturing parts of Sicily, setting up a foothold, as well as landing in Calabria and Corsica. In the eventual agreements set by the two sides, France gains Sicily and the two old Italian controlled Mediterranean Pacific, as well as multiple territories in Italy. As minor ports, and so colonization of Italy began. The French collapse. The two French states now are currently vying for power over not only the Mediterranean, Italy, as multiple other governments also plan to set up power in Italy, such as the UK, the Ottoman Empire, and emerging powers such as Greece, who plans to seize the roads. And so, chaos in Europe begins.